Would you know that the longest trial in the history of the federal court system was a Mafia trial? It wasn't the Gambinos, it wasn't the Genovese, it wasn't the Bonanos, it wasn't even my family, the Colombos, it was the Lucchese's. 21 months in a federal courtroom, 20 defendants. How do you do that? Watch. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. And today we're going to be reviewing the movie Find Me Guilty. Very interesting movie. Vin Diesel starred in it as Jackie D'Inocio, who was a Lucchese family associate. He did a great job as far as I'm concerned. It was the longest Mafia trial in history. 21 months in a federal courtroom. I can't even imagine that. I spent several months in a Manhattan courtroom when Giuliani put me on trial, and that was rough. But 21 months, almost 2 years in a federal courtroom. There was, I think, 19 co-defendants, or 20 defendants, I should say, on trial. It was a circus, trust me. But it was based upon a true story. We're going to get into it. Very interesting. I have some personal contact I had with some of the defendants, and I'm going to get into my relationship with them and what I know about the case personally. Before we do that, I want to mention that I am going to be at the Del Lago Casino Resort in Waterloo, New York on March 25th. I'm going to be on stage, appearing live, going to tell my story, get into a lot of things that I know people are interested in. Then we're going to do a Q&A. People, I always say, ask me anything that you want. I've been asked everything under the sun. You won't offend me, and if I don't want to answer, I know how to take the fifth. So fire away, it's okay. We also have a VIP section there, VIP tickets being sold. We'll be signing books, taking photos, collaborating a little bit. It'll be a fun time. So, Del Lago Casino and Resort, March 25th. Be there. And if you want to buy tickets, I think there's a link below and a phone number below to the casino. You can buy your tickets. They're going fast from what I hear. If you're in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, jump on board now. I look forward to it. We always have a great time together. So that's that. Let's get back to the movie Find Me Guilty. It was Sidney Lumet directed this film. He did a great job. He always does. Vin Diesel did a really good job, I thought. Shows that he could be a serious actor. Was kind of comedic at times, but he did a real good job. And what I liked about it is that much of the script regarding the courtroom testimony was based upon the actual transcripts of the trial. But before we get into the movie itself, I'll tell you my personal connection to some of the defendants on the case. Anthony Assaturo, they called him Tumac. He was the main defendant. I think in the movie he's called Nick Carrazzo. And I met Tumac back in the early 70s down in Hollywood, Florida. He had moved down there. He was living down there. And I think I might have told this story before. When I was younger, I got in some trouble. There was a guy, a maid guy from another family that started some real trouble between my mom and dad. Got me very, very upset. I went looking for the guy. I went after the guy. I actually found him at a bar, put a gun in his mouth, got into a little bit of a tussle with him. Anyway, word got back to my family, and Ali Boy Persico, Junior's brother at the time, not young Ali, who's my gumbada, but Junior's brother, I should say, at the time, Ali Boy, he was the acting boss of the family. Junior was away, as usual. And when he found out about it, he was very, very upset. Michael, you don't ever do that. He really gave me a tongue lashing, but he liked me a lot. And he said, look, until I solve this thing, you need to go down to Florida until I make this thing go away in some ways or fashion. So I'm down in Florida, and another friend of mine by the name of Charlie was with Tumac at the time. He introduced me to him, and I thought he was a nice guy. You know, we met, briefly. I seen him, I think, twice during that time. And that was it. For me, like I said, nice guy. And I always say, I meet somebody, they're nice guys. Michael, he's a nice guy, he's a mobster. To me, they were nice guys. And so that was my relationship there. Also, while I was in jail in 1986, I was away with another one of the principals in the trial, and that was Michael Tusetta. Michael Tusetta and his brother Marty were both co-defendants in that case. Marty, I think, was out in California at the time, or he got arrested out in California. I think I might have met him once. I don't remember. But Michael I spent a lot of time with because I was being held without bail on my racketeering case, the one I eventually pled guilty to and got a 10 10-year prison sentence for and a big restitution. And Michael was telling me a lot about the case, a lot about the trial, a lot about Tumac and so on and so forth, what was going on there. And basically the whole Jersey crew was indicted for the usual stuff that you get indicted for in a racketeering case. There was loan sharking, there was gambling, there was murder, there was fraud, all the usual stuff. Extortion, of course. So he gave me some insight as to the case, and we got along pretty well. I actually liked him quite a lot. And at the time, he was basically in charge of everything in Jersey. Tumac, who was under Tony Ducks at the time, who had his own problems, he was on trial or going on trial in the mob commission case. Everybody was in jail at that point in time in the mid-'80s. It was ridiculous. More guys in jail than on the street. Because Tumac had his own issues, he put Michael Tessetta really in charge of the Jersey operation of the Lucchese family. And so Michael told me a lot about what was going on. But let's get into the actual case. Jackie DiNorsio, who was a Lucchese family associate, he is kind of the star of this, played by Vin Diesel. And the whole case centers around the fact that he decided to represent himself in that trial. And there was controversy about it, of course. Lawyers are always worried about that. The judge admonishes him about that. Hey, you don't want to do that, are you sure? But hey, he has this right. In this country, you have a right to go pro per, to represent yourself. There are times when a judge can say no and he won't have it. But most of the time, if that's what you want to do, then you do it. Famously that Carmine Persico represented himself in the commission case. And the lawyer the judge in that case actually complimented him and said, hey, you did a great job for a non-attorney, and probably did a better job than most attorneys can do. But anyway, he decides to defend himself. Why? Because he had been on trial on another case. He was convicted on a drug case. He got, 22 to 30 years, and he was very upset with the way his lawyer represented him on that case. So he said, hey, what do I have to lose? If I get convicted on this, who knows? They'll probably run it concurrent with the case that I got. I can do a better job than my attorney, so he represents himself. Now, Nick Carrazzo, who is the Tumac character, is very upset. For some reason, he doesn't like Jackie DiNorsio, and he's very, very upset with him. He doesn't want him to do it. He thinks he's a clown. He talks down to him throughout the whole trial. I don't know if that was really the case with Tumac and Jackie. I'm not sure. I never heard that. But let's say it was, for argument's sake, or for the sake of, this case and what we're reviewing, let's say that it was true. He didn't like him, and he kept knocking him, and he wanted the lawyer to get him severed out of the case, and there was a lot of controversy with a lot of the lawyers. They said if he makes a mistake, if he asks a question that he doesn't know the answer to, which is what you're not supposed to do, then it could affect all the other guys on trial, all the other defendants. But the other defendants seemed to like Jackie. They liked the fact that he was doing it, and Michael Tessetta happened to like him too. He told me that. So they were actually for it. So after the judge admonishes him, the case starts, it begins, and the principal witness in the case, by the way, was Jackie DiNorsio's cousin, who had actually shot Jackie DiNorsio. He shot him, almost killed him. Somehow he survived. And he was the principal witness against almost everybody, certainly against Tumac. Tumac was unhappy about that because he blamed Jackie for bringing his cousin into the family and bringing him to meet him and so on and so forth. So he was upset about it. So that's the whole kind of background of the case. Now, there was one lawyer who really took a liking to Jackie and said that he would help him and assist him throughout the case. He told the judge that. And he was Michael Tessetta and Marty Tessetta's lawyer. Now, he also did a brilliant job, and he was played by Peter Dinklage. Now, if you don't know who Peter Dinklage was, he was one of my favorite characters in Game of Thrones. Short guy, but he's a brilliant actor, and he did a great job as the attorney representing the Tessetta brothers, and who took a liking and was going to counsel and try to guide Jackie DiNorsio through the case. He told the judge that, and he did it. And he actually was a proponent, and he actually stood up for him, and he said, hey, you know what? He's got a good personality. Maybe the jury will get to like him. He's going to joke a little bit. And he said something very interesting. A laughing jury is not a hanging jury. And that's what he told all the defendants, and that's what he told the lawyers. Let's give Jackie a chance. Let's see what he does. And we find out right away from the opening statement that the jury actually did take a liking to Jackie DiNorsio. He liked his style. They liked him. He was kind of refreshing. He was comedic. You can see he didn't really know what he was doing. He even said it. He said, look, I speak from the heart. I'm not a lawyer. I've never done this before. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I'm going to do my best, to get through this. And throughout the trial, He is obviously the most colorful guy in the case, and the jury, you can see, starts to take a liking to him. Now, the prosecutor is very upset. He's a mean guy in this case. As a matter of fact, prior to the trial starting, he pulled Jackie D'Annunzio out of MDC, brought him into his office, and tried to convince him to become an informant. He said, look, you're going down, everybody's going down. He shows him the indictment, it's this thick. And he said, everybody's going down. If you want to save yourself some time, you're already doing that time. It doesn't have to be 22 to 30 years. You know, the normal things that a prosecutor would tell you, and the normal reason why most informants decide to become informants, because they don't want to do the jail time. And when a prosecutor offers them a cut in their sentence or no sentence at all in some cases, hey, it's very attractive. And that's why they become informants most of the time. But Jackie D'Annunzio, he's not having it. He said, I'm not going to snitch against my friends. That's it. I love these guys and they love me. Prosecutor says, they don't love you. He says, no, I love these guys. They love me. Prosecutor gets mad, kicks over a table of food that they had given Jackie to try to romance him a little bit. He's not having it. I'm not going to become an informant. That's it. That's how he gets to the trial, and that's how he defends himself. So as the trial goes on, we see the controversy among the defendants. We see Nick being increasingly upset with Jackie, thinking that he's ruining the case, that the jury is not really liking him, that he's going to bury everybody. And this is going on and on and on and on. And throughout, we see the prosecutor also getting very upset because he's kind of seeing that the jury is taking a liking to Jackie. Now, I know this. You know, when a jury takes a liking to you, they don't want to convict you. You know, they're human beings too. Yes, they have to follow the law. And yes, you know, there's instructions by the judge. And yes, they're supposed to be weighing the evidence that comes out of the witness stand and from the documents that are submitted as evidence. And they're supposed to do their civic duty and not, you know, have an impression about the defendant himself. You know, they're not supposed to take a liking to him. They're there to be arbiters of the truth based upon the evidence that they see and then arrive at a verdict. But you know what? Jurors are human too. And if they like somebody, it's very hard for them to convict. I know that for a fact. I've been on trial 5 times and I've polled a number of juries, and you kind of get into their head a little bit and afterwards, and you see how they're feeling and what kind of motivated them. And yes, most of them are honest and they do, you know, do their job and they do weigh the evidence, but you know, it's tough when you take a liking to somebody or when you take a disliking to somebody. It goes both ways. So throughout, we see that the jury is starting to take a liking to Jackie D'Annunzio. And, you know, his co-defendants are actually liking it. They're not really worried. You know, another thing interesting during this trial, it went on so long that some of the people were getting sick. You know, one of the defendants went down. I think he had a heart attack or something. But throughout the trial, there was more than one, if I remember, Michael Tessetta telling me, that got sick. And that, you know, they said at one time, is this being sponsored by the Red Cross? It was, you know, 21 months. And a lot of these guys were elderly. You know, you're sitting in the courtroom every day, you got different ailments, you're not going to the doctor. I mean, things happen. You know, things got so contentious at one point in time, and the prosecutor got so upset with Jackie's antics, so to speak, that they rough him up in his jail cell. He has some of the guards, the COs come in, they give him a beating in there. Does that really happen? No, it doesn't happen in the federal system. That was exaggerated in this movie. It doesn't really happen. And I know it didn't happen to Jackie D'Annunzio. Listen, unless you start a brawl and you know, hit somebody, you hit, you know, another inmate, that's different. But they just don't come and beat you up. That's not going to happen. But Jackie D'Annunzio gets beat up in this, and he still doesn't rat. He won't rat on the COs. But that still doesn't have him flip. He won't do it. The climax to this is that there is a very impassioned cross-examination of Jackie D'Annunzio's cousin, who became the principal witness in the case. And it's impassioned. And he talks about, you know, him shooting him. And he talks about how he took care of him. And it's a pivotal point in the case, because I think the jury was really paying attention to the principal witness and his relationship to Jackie D'Annunzio at that time. And I remember Jackie asked him, you know, after you shot me, what did I say to you? He said, I love you. It really had an impact on the jury, I believe. Prosecutor's getting very nervous. He thinks the jury is being won over by Jackie D'Annunzio. He wants to cut his losses. Been on trial a long time. There's contention sometimes between him and the judge. A lot of stuff going on. And by the way, I think Ron Silver did an amazing job as the judge. He was terrific. He took a liking to Jackie D'Annunzio. You could see it. There was one scene when Jackie D'Annunzio's mom died, and the judge brings him into his chambers to tell him about it. And you can see he really had feeling for Jackie at that point in time. Jackie said, "Can I go to see my mother? You know, I want to go to the funeral." And the judge says, "Look, I don't have the authority to do that. I wish I could, but I'll put in a good word for you. It's in another district." He tries, but he wasn't able to go. We see another scene where Jackie's ex-wife comes to visit him in prison, talks about it. It was another emotional scene. Jackie actually tries to have sex with her in the room, but the COs bust in. It was just an ugly scene, and I don't appreciate seeing scenes like that. It was just a reminder of, things that happen in prison. So he's going to offer them a deal, and we see the prosecutor in the judge's chambers with the judge and Dinklage, the lawyer, and he's going to offer them a deal. He said, across the board, everybody gets 7.5 to 10 years, except for Jackie, because he's already doing his time, and that's the deal. Take it. So now the lawyer has to go back to his client, the lawyers, and all the defendants, and say, look, there's a deal on the table. This is it, 7.5 to 10 years. You want to cut your losses, or you want to, stick it out and get to the jury and see what their verdict is. So Jackie gets up first, and he says, look, I'm already doing the time, but I don't want to take a plea. And he gives a very impassioned kind of a speech to everybody and says, I'm not taking a plea. I want to fight this thing all the way. And we watch. And the defendants, Michael Tassetta in the lead, they get up one at a time, I believe, and they say, no deal. Let's fight it out. Let's go the distance. And finally, Saturo, the Nick character, he, under his breath, practically says, no deal, let's fight. So they decide to bring the case to the jury. And we see the closing arguments. Dinklage does a great job in his closing argument, I thought. And the closing arguments are very, very important in a case. Let me tell you, I've seen cases won on closing arguments. The jury is paying attention. It's the last thing that they hear. And I don't like the fact that the prosecutor is the last person normally in a federal system that they're allowed to hear. I don't like that, but that's the way it is. And Jackie D'Annunzio gives, an excellent closing argument. And then the jury is charged by the judge. The judge gives them charges. He tells them what the law is and what they can deliberate on, what they shouldn't deliberate on. He gives them the charge. He talks to them about reasonable doubt, and he sends the jury out. Now, this is a 21-month trial. You expect this jury, a lot of defendants and a lot of charges. I think it was a 76-count indictment. You expect this jury to be out for 3 weeks. I know when I was on trial in the Giuliani case, I had 15 co-defendants. I think there were 29 counts in the indictment, and our jury was out for about a week, 8-9 days, because they have to give, they have to decide on each charge for each defendant. It takes time. So we figure, hey, you got 2-3 weeks here, that's it. Stunningly and suddenly, after 14 hours, the jury comes back and they're ready to return a verdict. And nobody knows what. They say, wow, did we do that bad a job? The defendants are thinking that they're going to convict all of us immediately. The prosecutor, they don't like the fact when the jury comes in quick. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's no good. Nobody knows what's going on. So now we're in the courtroom and the jury is going to deliver a verdict. Now I want to tell you this, people. I've been in many, what's the word I want to use? Many situations where you have anxiety, but there is no greater anxiety than when you're standing in front of a jury, 12 people that can decide your fate in a case like this for the rest of your life. If they got convicted of all of these charges, they were going away forever. That jury can take away your freedom, okay, with one word, and that word is guilty. So when you're sitting and you're standing at that defendant's table, you want to hear one word, and that word you want to hear is not. Not. It's the best word you can ever want to hear when you're in that situation. You want to hear not. So now the judge says to the foreman of the jury, have you reached the verdict? And she says, yes. Read the verdict. And then we hear it. Not guilty to all defendants on all charges. The courtroom erupts, and believe me, I was there, because when we got not guilty verdicts in my cases, everybody erupts. All the defendants' families are there, the defendants are, everybody's happy. And so they're hugging one another, and you see the prosecutor at the table with his head down. He's destroyed, because this was the case of his life. And he just lost it. And you know what? He deserved to lose it. If his character in reality was anything like the character in the movie, then he deserved to lose it. It was a bad case. And everybody is thrilled and happy, and they're hugging one another, and Jackie is in tears, and everybody, they're in tears. It's a very emotional thing, and believe me, I can relate to it, having stood in front of 5 juries and never hearing the word guilty. I had 3 hung juries, I had 1 dismissed before it got to the jury, and then I had 1 acquittal. And it was just the best thing ever, I gotta tell you, at that moment in time. So now everybody's out, they're celebrating, they run out of the courtroom, they're hugging the jurors, because you've seen the defendants saw the jury coming out of the courtroom, and they're hugging the jurors, and they're thanking them, and the jurors are hugging them. It's just a wonderful, emotional time when you have your freedom back. You know, you have your freedom back. It was an amazing, scene for me. And then the defendants see Jackie, who, remember, was doing his time, and he's handcuffed and shackled, and they're putting him back into the paddy wagon, the van that's going to take him back to MDC, and eventually back to the prison where he was finishing out his time. And it's just an emotional scene. And Jackie actually ended up doing 17 years in that case, and he was released after 17 years. And interestingly enough, while this movie was being shot, he died during the filming of the movie. Anthony Asatoro, he got in a lot of trouble afterwards. He was in and out of trouble. And after Tony Duggs died, Vic Amuso and Gaspipe, Queso, took over. And they didn't like Asatoro. They thought he wasn't doing the right thing. I'm not going to get into all of that. That's another story. But anyway, they wanted to kill him. And they went after him. They sent some people down in Miami. He wasn't there. And I think at the time, what I heard is Tumac found out that not only were they targeting him, but they were targeting his wife and his son, something that you just don't do. And as a result of that, Tumac turned informant and put a lot of guys in prison, I can tell you that. As far as Michael Tessetta and Marty Tessetta, I think after that, they got in trouble again. They got indicted on another case. They got a long sentence, I think 25 years. I think they might still be serving time. I'm not sure. I haven't followed that. But after they beat this case, they continued, got in trouble again. So that's how it goes most of the time. So that's it. I suggest you watch the movie. It was well directed, well acted, interesting story, based upon a true story, and I think you'll enjoy it. Find Me Guilty. Probably get it. I think on YouTube they even have it in full length. If not, all the platforms that they have these movies on. Go and look at it. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And MichaelFranzese.com, you got to join my crew. Every single day, people are coming on board, and I'm telling you, they're loving it. The content we're putting in there, the community that is formed here, people just uplifting one another, having each other's back. So much is going on there. We're even doing a Bible study for all of you that want to be involved in that and want to, strengthen your faith a little bit. We do that also. We have something for everybody, but it's not for everybody, but we have something for everybody. It's up to you. MichaelFranzese.com. Take a look. Doesn't cost you anything to take a look. And please subscribe. Okay, our numbers keep going up. We appreciate that. You get alerts. If you like the content, show us you do. We work hard to try to give you the best possible content we possibly can. We know you have a lot of choices on YouTube, and we appreciate those that support us. That's it for today. How do I always leave you? Same way. Be safe. Be healthy. I sincerely mean this. God bless all of you. And yes, I will see you next time. Take care.